Hello, this is Jesse Wellhafer with Continue to Give. Really excited to bring you some great content today. We just had a great webinar with Eric and Hunter, and they're both going to talk to you about the steps it takes to fully fund your vision. You have an awesome vision. Your cause is worth funding. So Eric and Hunter, who are both missionaries doing great work around the world, are going to just lay out some of the steps that they've done to help ensure that their mission is fully funded. Yeah, just stay tuned. You're going to love this content. And here it is.
All right, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon or wherever you might be. But thank you guys for joining us. We'll give it just a minute as people enter. I think, we'll see. We'll let people enter. But I'll just go over a few technical things real fast. First of all, we can't see you and we can't hear you, so you won't be able to talk to us, and we can't see you. But there is a chat box, and so if at any time during this webinar you got a question, go ahead and type that into the chat box. Also, I should probably just introduce myself. My name is Hunter, and I'm actually the marketing director with Continue to Give, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But here with me today, and I'm super excited about this, is Eric Helmick with Help World Tour, the founder of this missions organization. So Eric, thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Hunter. It's great to be here. Really appreciate it and excited to jump in and do this.
Yeah, awesome. So I think we have some really good content for you guys. But again, just some technical things. If you look up in the top, kind of the top bar of your screen, there's two opposing arrows. And if you go ahead and click that, it'll go full screen and you'll be able to see some of the slides we're going to share, just a little bit easier. Also, let's see. One other thing, very important, is this webinar is kind of detailed towards people with a nonprofit organization or church with a nonprofit status. So people that are ready to receive donations and they have that tax, the 501c3. If you don't have that, if you're just a missionary and you're going to be joining an organization, or you have a vision that you want of a nonprofit, but you don't actually have that nonprofit yet, this is still for you. And so you're going to need these. You're going to need this information and this knowledge that we're going to share with you guys when you get the nonprofit set up. So don't leave. Listen. Really encourage you just to stay on the line with us. Another important thing is sometimes I use organization and ministry and nonprofit interchangeably. I mean the same thing when I say these things. And so for me, I'm a missionary. My wife and I are missionaries, so I use ministry a lot. But I'm still talking to you, even if you're a secular nonprofit. Same things in this webinar apply to you guys. So just want you to be aware of that. So moving forward, a little bit more just about Continue to Give. So again, I'm the marketing director with Continue to Give, and Continue to Give is an online giving software platform for churches and nonprofits. For us, and we process your donations and then get sent to your church. Basically, our goal is to make it really easy for people to give. Listen, a confused in marketing or selling, a confused mind never buys. So if you make it a confusing process for people to be able to donate to you, they're not going to donate. If you make it really easy, more people will donate, and you'll be able to fulfill your vision with your nonprofit. So that's what Continue to Give does. We give you that platform. What this webinar is for is to really give you those next steps you need to take to fully fund your vision and actually get those donations flowing into your ministry or nonprofit so that you can go and do the work that you need to do. I just want to say hi to Sherry. Thank you for joining us today from Utah. Awesome. Really appreciate you being here today. So that's what this webinar is for. We want to give you the next steps, the tools to go and fund your vision. And so hopefully by the end of this, you've got a plan and you've got thoughts of, okay, I get it. I know what I need to do personally or as my organization to go out and get these funds. So yeah. With that said, I just want to share a little bit about my story. So this is a picture of my wife and I. Again, we are missionaries in Kosovo. But going back before I met my wife, I did spend a number of years in Australia as a missionary with a missions organization, and actually as the co-founder of a missions organization there. And it was an amazing time. We had this traveling theatrical show, and where we would share the gospel message in different cities. And we really felt like God put it on our hearts to not openly ask for money. Now, maybe in specific cases, but really just to trust God that he would bring in the finances. Now, this was it made it a very difficult faith journey at times. And there was times where we didn't even have money to put diesel in the bus to get from one city to the next city. But God always came through in one way or another. And it was really cool. With that said, though, we had big dreams of what our ministry could look like if we just had this amount of money. And we never got that amount of money. And we were never able, we felt like, to really get our ministry to the potential it could have been. But again, still, it was an amazing time. Now, at the end of my time in Australia, I met my wife. I moved back to the States and we got married. And then we felt this call to go out on missions. And so we started looking around at different organizations, finally felt led to go to Kosovo with an organization there. And we applied, got accepted. We were ready to go. And we were of the mindset of, we're just going to go and trust that God is going to bring in the support and the donations for us to live. Well, our organization has a policy that you actually have to be fully funded before you go on the missions field. So they told us that we need to raise all of our support before we go out there. So this was a brand new thing for me. And then they told us that we actually have to have $4,500 of monthly support and about $13,000 startup funds. I'll explain the $20,000 that's on the screen there in just a minute. And on top of that, we had to do this by December 3rd, which was 90 days away at that time. Or we'd have to wait another 6 months to be able to go out with the next wave of missionaries. So suddenly we were faced with, wait a minute, we can't just rely on God or just go by faith. Our organization is asking us to raise this full support. And we really prayed about it and felt like this is the direction God wanted us to go. And so we did. And we changed our mindset. We learned the things that we're going to share with you in this webinar. We put those things we implemented them, and we were able to raise in 90 days $4,500 of monthly support and actually $20,000 of startup expenses. So the $13,000 that the organization asked for, plus another $7,000 to ship a container filled with theatrical supplies for our ministry overseas. So I want to share that just so you guys know that this is possible, and the things we're sharing with you, they work. You can successfully raise your donations, raise funds for your vision. The first thing when it comes to raising funds, I believe, is knowing your why. What is the story that led you to doing what you're doing right now? I want to show you this picture. This is a picture of me in Kosovo, and kind of a little bit of, well, let me explain a little bit of me. So years ago, before Australia, I worked in a job that I really hated. I really didn't like it, and it was not my passion. And I had all these dreams of doing something else, but I felt so stuck in this place. And then someone stepped in and helped me out of that place and showed me the next steps to take and encouraged me. And I was able to take the next steps and go to Australia and do missions there and actually start pursuing my passions. The people in Kosovo are a very broken people, and they're very oppressed. So they're oppressed by the government, they're oppressed by the other countries around them, and there's a lot of corruption there. And so when you ask a Kosovo, like, what is their dream, they'll say, oh, I just want to leave. If I could get to Germany or Switzerland or America, if I could just leave my country, maybe then it would be okay. But there is no hope here in Kosovo. I can relate to them. That's why I want to go and I want to serve them. I want to get them out of that state of hopelessness and share with them, no, you can change things where you're at. It's not over for Kosovo. So I want to share that is, what is the story that led you to want to serve the people that you're serving? you really need to be able to articulate that. Why do you want to do what you do? When you understand that, that creates an emotional connection. It creates that why, that the reason you're going over there is, it creates an emotional connection, first of all, with the people you're serving. So this is me doing illusion. I'm an illusionist for some people at a table in a cafe there for some Kosovars. But knowing your why, your story, really creates an emotional connection with the people. It's also about the people you're serving. So it's not just about that emotional connection, but it's about the actual person that you are serving. So whether you're a missionary or whether you're an organization serving the homeless or feeding the hungry somewhere, it's about every single person that you touch. It's not about a bunch of numbers. It's about those people. It's also about the volunteers or staff that you work with. They're not just working with you to serve these people. This is an opportunity for you to pour into their life and see them rise up and pursue their dreams and grow emotionally and spiritually. And then also it's about the places you're serving. So where are these places? It could be a tropical island or Africa, or maybe it's just a suburb of the city you grew up in. And that's going to be unique to your organization, your ministry. And then lastly, this is something really important. All these things lead to this. Your donors may never get to experience these people or experience these locations where you serve. So you serving there gives you an opportunity to invite them into something bigger than themselves and partner with you and experience these places, experience these people. And I think that's really key. And we're going to touch on that a little bit more a little bit later. But right now, I want to hand this over to Eric, and he's going to kind of talk about putting together a business plan and actually presenting to donors. So again, what I shared is you need to understand your why. What is the story that led you to do what you're doing? That creates an emotional connection. Who are the people you're serving? Remember that it's about the volunteers as well. Where are the places? And that all relates to your donors. You get to invite them to be a part of that. So I'm going to hand this over to Eric and let him share with you guys.
Thank you, Hunter. It's so important that you understand how to connect with your donors. And Hunter's really done a good job of just walking you through. Really know why you're doing what you're doing. You have to be sold on that. And once you do that, you establish the emotional connection with the people you serve, your volunteers, and your donors. Your donors are going to listen. They really do want to hear what you have to say. So let me just tell you a little bit about my story, and then let's just talk about some of the presentations that you need to be able to fund your organization fully. These are some pictures of my wife and I. My wife and I are missionaries. We do work in Australia. We also do work in Vanuatu. Our organization is called Help World Tour. We basically travel the world and we just help people in need. In Vanuatu, we build fresh water tanks. Currently, we're also building a church and an evacuation center in case of a cyclone. Hunter and I, years ago, if you haven't already figured out, Hunter and I are father and son, and so we've done some great work together, and we get to, from time to time, be able to do these webinars together. But years ago, we went to Vanuatu, and we were there after Cyclone Pam and saw the devastation and realized they really need something where families can be protected. These are some pictures of the facility that we are building. It's almost complete. It almost looks like that. It's not quite yet finished. So we're in the process of still collecting donations to be able to finish this building. But when we first started and we made our presentations to organizations, this is what we were presenting. I'm not a 3D drawer. I don't know a lot about graphics and art. And so I prepared these on my computer the best I could. And this is what I took to people initially to raise money for this evacuation center. I wish I would have had those really fancy 3D drawings in the beginning. But you know what? People saw my heart, they saw my passion, and they saw my desire to serve a people in need. And so this is what we had, and this is what we used to make our presentation, but it worked, and we were able to gain funds to actually get the project started. When you go out and you start raising funds, you need to really be serious about it. You need to take yourself seriously. You've probably heard this term, dress for success. Well, I really believe in that. You really need to set yourself up emotionally, physically, and mentally to go out and successfully fund your organization. So I encourage you to look your best when you go out. And whether you're presenting to corporations or to individuals, you've got to always present your best. You might be presenting with a computer, but you always want to have handouts. You always want to have illustrations and things that they can see. And even if you're in a coffee shop, you still want to have a presentation that really draws people in, your friends or family. They want to be drawn into the whole vision, not just a little bit of a piece of it. So let's talk about what that business plan actually looks like. If you've put a business plan together in the past, great, you're ready to go. If not, this is a template that you can use. At the end of this webinar, we're actually going to share this with you. You can just fill in the blanks. There's some examples there for you to use, but this is something you want to be able to use. So this is a business plan. In the business plan, if I'm your donor, what I want to know about your organization is just an overview, an executive summary. What is your goal? I want to know a little bit about you and your organization, and I want to know about the services that you actually offer. The next thing I want to know is who's the target market. I use that lightly because we're talking about people, not just a market, but I want to know, where are you going? Who are you planning to serve? And actually, is there competition? You know, we think of competition as something in the retail or the convenience store market, a shoe store on each corner. You know, they're in competition. But competition also plays out in your organization. Are there other people doing the exact same thing you're doing? In other words, when we serve on the island and we're building fresh water tanks, there are many other organizations that are building fresh water tanks. So why should you give to my organization versus them? Truthfully, I don't really care as long as the water tanks get built. But if I'm trying to fund my vision so that I can help a specific people, then it's going to be important that I understand that competition piece. The SWOT analysis, that's just a business term. It just means strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. If you can tell me those things and you can identify those things ahead of time for me, the donor, then I'm going to better understand where my money is going. And I'm going to understand that you've already considered what the strengths or the weaknesses are of your organization and where this money might be used. I'd love to know what your marketing plan is. I want to know, are you using social media? Are you using other platforms? Are you using brochures or email, MailChimp? How are you getting the information out to donors and out to people so they know about your organization? And then what is your operational plan and who's your team? I really want to know this, and I want to be passionate about this. I want to know who you are, who your team members are, who your treasurer is. I want to know who your board members are. If you don't have those people yet, then you want to make sure you start to line those people up, get a bench ready so that they can also assist you in this business plan. Last is just some financial things, the startup costs, the profit and loss statement, and then there's a 2-year balance sheet. Listen, your organization does not necessarily have to have a positive bottom line. My organization doesn't actually make any money. All the money that comes in from donations goes right to the projects. It doesn't go to administration fees. It doesn't pay for cell phones. It doesn't pay for visas or flights or anything. It only goes to the projects that we work on. Your organization might be different. You might be able to raise millions of dollars. You might have a bank account that you draw from on a regular basis for those types of things. I need to know that. I need to understand how you're going to be managing the money that I'm going to be giving to you. So that's what the business plan looks like. But there's many, many presentations that you're going to have to put together. I would say 3 in all. So this one is specific to going out and really trying to leverage those corporate sponsors or individuals that you know have money and could support your organization. But we also have to go back to that why and that emotional connection that Hunter talked about. So I'm going to pass this back over to him because there's another piece of the presentation that you need to put together to get now that emotional connection along with the business side of your organization.
Yeah, awesome. So just real quick, I'll just go through these slides real quickly. But again, this is what we presented. My wife and I presented to couples, and again, most of our meetings were in cafes or for lunch or dinner dates with other couples or other people. And we had a booklet that we had printed up, and we would just go through these slides. And it was very simple, mostly just pictures, and we would talk about it. So first, we wanted them to know our story. Where did we come from? How did we meet? Where did this passion to go into ministry come from? Next thing we tell them is, who are we going to serve? Who are the people? And we would tell them about the Kosovo people, yeah, where they came from. And we would talk about the location of Kosovo. A lot of people don't even know Kosovo exists. I know I didn't. A year before we went to Kosovo, I didn't even know it existed. So we talk about the location, the demographics, all that kind of stuff. Then we talk about just the current situation. And that's not just politically. We would talk about that a little bit, but mostly, where are the people at mentally, spiritually? What is the overall atmosphere of Kosovo like over the people? Then we would do past examples. This is very powerful. Just what are the past examples that our ministry has touched? And so, we wanted to go work with the arts community in Kosovo. Well, in our past, we worked with these youth in Australia, and this was just one of many stories of how our ministry impacted their lives. Then we would talk about support and say, in a dream world, this is what our support would look like. It would be about 26 people at these different levels of support. And then we would talk about our kind of break that down. So, hey, look, our personal budget is this, our ministry budget is this, and the total budget. And the deadline for this is we have to raise all these things by December 3rd. We didn't want to just leave them saying, this is what we got to raise, and hopefully in the next few years we'll raise it. We really wanted to say, hey, we got a deadline for raising this. And then next we would just talk about our startup goals. So it says 30,000. I believe it was just 20,000 at the time. Can't remember, but we'd talk about our startup goals and explain what that includes. The airfare, the shipping of ministry supplies, training costs, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe, is that the last slide on there? No, yeah, it is. So we would just ask them, or so we would share these things, and then at the end we would sit with them and say, would you consider supporting us at $100 to $200 a month? And we would actually make the ask and then wait for the response. And so that's just a very brief explanation of a personal presentation. But again, that doesn't have to just be personal for missionaries. As an organization, you want a business plan, but you can also put something very personal with pictures that's very touching to present to people. So I'm going to hand this back over to Eric, and he's going to talk about this other presentation piece we have in here.
Hey, thanks, Hunter. So, okay, we like Hunter said, we have the business plan, pretty deep and specific. It's got to be strategic, and then it's got to have measurable goals in there. And then we have an emotional connection. So a presentation that really, if you've been feeding the hungry, if you've been going out and feeding homeless people, or I'm not sure what your business is, but if you've been doing that, certainly you have some kind of passion, some kind of pictures. You have something from your past that you can share. That's what people want to know. Why did this passion well up inside you? Why should we support that? So that's what you're after. This here is really more of an internal document. This is something that Continue to Give put together. This is actually what they use to actually give to organizations to get them to use Continue to Give. And it walks them through. It's just a presentation. You could use a similar presentation. You put something like this together, and it just shows, what are you going to do? What are the benefits of this? What are the costs of your presentation, what you're trying to do? And how do people implement it? And so you might use this presentation right here specifically. You might take that to your board and say, we need to use Continue to Give as a donation collection platform. There you go. That presentation is already complete. You take it to your board, they approve it, and you know what the costs are. You might go in and you might manipulate that presentation to a degree and use that to go out. And it's a really quick handout where you can say to donors, you know what, this is a real quick look at what our organization looks like, what we're trying to do, and what the costs are. So we just wanted to give you three different styles of presentations that you can leverage to be able to fund your organization fully. You know, what this really is about is this is about long-term goals. In other words, I know that the work that I'm doing with my wife in Vanuatu is changing lives, not just today, but for generations to come. For generations to come, people, families and their children will have fresh water that they don't have today. For generations to come, they will have access to a facility where they can worship and they can learn, they can have education going on, and they can also have the confidence they're safe in the event a cyclone were to come. But it's more than that. It's also, I have confidence in knowing that when I gather my donors together, they get to participate in something that they might not otherwise be a part of. You really have to take that seriously. Actually, I have an elderly couple coming to my house tonight for dinner, and they're coming over because they've been supporting us for many, many years, and we have a gift we're giving them. It's a book we've put together that has our story on the islands, and we want to present that to them because they're never going to have that opportunity to actually go to the islands. So we encourage you to really play a big part in your donors' lives and sharing what you do. Lastly, it's about your volunteers. Maybe you have volunteers. You see, lots of times people volunteer for organizations because they can't afford to actually give you money. Oftentimes, I'd rather have the volunteers. You need to remember they play a huge part in your organization as far as helping you to move forward. They play a big part there. So surround yourselves with these people that really pour into your organization. There's one other piece, and I'm going to let Hunter cover what that is. How you're going to actually fully fund your ministry or your organization has an incredible amount to do with where you are mentally. I'll let Hunter explain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you'll find you're on this journey. So you're like, okay, man, I've got the story. I know the people and the location. I've gone through the business plan and made it specific to my ministry. I've put together a presentation. I've got the stuff to go out and raise the money. Now you'll find that there's a blockage in your mind that needs to change. And so we put this picture here, and what you really need to do is kill the giants in your mind. There are going to be giants that come up and will stop you from going out and raising your support if you let it. So just to name a few of these, now this is going to be specific to different people and it'll be different for everybody, but a lot of times some of them will be the same. So a few of them, one of them is begging. I know in my mind that I had to get over this, that asking for money was begging. Asking for money can be begging. Going out and asking a donor to partner with you in helping the hungry, helping the needy, helping people know Christ, that is not begging. That's inviting somebody in to be a part of something really big and really important. Another giant in your mind could be no one believes in you or your vision. There are a lot of people in this world. You know, I don't know however many billions there are. But even if you live in a small town out in the country, my guess is there's still at least a few hundred, if not a few thousand people in that tiny town. There has got to be a handful of people that actually believe in you. And for most people, they live in a bigger town than just a couple thousand. You're going to be in a town of 40,000 or something. There are people that believe in you and that want to see the change that you're working towards. They want to partner with you. Another thing is just it's difficult, and a lot of people think this is way too hard. Raising money, it's too hard for me. I want somebody else to do that. It can be difficult. It is hard. It's not too hard. Anybody can do it. And actually, if you break it down to just the very easy things, just know your story and understand why you want to help these people in the first place, and then share your heart with people. It really comes down to that. Share your heart. And time restraints is another one. People believe they don't have time. That was myself and my wife. We had 90 days to raise all this support. We also had 2 full-time jobs, and we realized we don't have time. So we dealt with it. what we did is we went to a couple supporters and we said, hey, would you give us a large one-time donation to cover our salary for the next few months so that we can go out and raise support full-time? Maybe that is something, and so we did. They donated that, and we quit our full-time jobs, and we're able to go raise support full-time. Now, maybe that's not possible for you. Maybe that that would work or wouldn't work, but listen, there's a way to find the time to go do this. Another lie or big giant right now, I think, is just, everything happening politically and with the pandemic, not just in America, but around the world. A lot of people have experienced a lot of financial hardship in 2020 and leading into 2021. And so a lot of people think, well, people don't want to give because they've been strapped for cash over the last year, which is totally true. It has been hard. I believe that giving is a necessary, it's so important to our finances. I know that giving, when you give, it is more blessed to give than to receive, I believe. And so I believe in these financially hard times, we should be giving. And a lot of people, I have found actually that giving has actually increased in some areas and not decreased, even in spite of the hardships. And so people still want to give, and people still want to see people helped during this time. A really important key to all of this that we're sharing is I really am for face-to-face interactions with people. Sending out an email is great. Doing this, a webinar is great if that's the only thing you can do. But if you can get a face-to-face meeting with someone, that is really, really important, I think. And maybe it would take you getting on an airplane and going to see someone and meet with them and invite them to be a part of your ministry. It could be very relaxed, a meal with donors. Now, it could be cooking, so you can get creative with this. How do you meet with donors and ask them to support you? Well, something we did is, so my father's a chef and I'm an illusionist. So we invited about 6 couples over to our house one time, and my father and mother cooked a gourmet dinner for them. After the dinner, I did about a 10 to 15 minute illusion show performance. And then after that, we sat them down in the living room, gave a presentation for what our ministry is going to be, and asked them to support us and asked them to donate to that. If you're not a gourmet chef, it's okay. Bake some cookies for them or something. But that's a great way. That's a great way to just build that relationship there. Speaking of relationship building, having a donor management, a CRM is super, super important. My wife and I used one. You need something to handle all your contacts, and Excel is great, but it takes a lot of work in Excel to keep that updated. We have something with Continue to Give. It's called the Donor Management System. And here's a picture of it. It might be a little bit small unless you're full screen, but look, you've got a timeline, you've got tasks in there, their contact info, the background, the latest notes, and there's also a tagging function. Super important to have your donors' information so that you know who that, especially when that list starts to grow and you've got a lot of names and you can't remember each person. You can go back in and go, oh yeah, I met this person here. This is what's going on in their life right now. Their birthday's coming up, and so I can put a task in there just to call them on their birthday and say, hey, I was thinking of you. Listen, it is all about building a relationship with your donor. They are not just an email to ask for money. That's not what they are. They're not just a number. That donor is someone that is giving to you because he or she wants to partner with you. So you need to build that relationship and find a tool that works to build that relationship with them. Super important right there. So I'm actually going to hand this back over to Eric, and I'm going to pull up some handouts. And just so you know, if you look up on the top bar where it says chat and then polls and handouts, if you click on handouts, you'll see some stuff popping up there, and you can go ahead and download those.
This is exciting. You guys have some really great resources that you can now take, you can use, you can implement. Let me share just for a few minutes, just a few things we're going to give for you. I'm going to start in the upper right, this is the fundraising checklist. So these are just items that you'll want to go down the list. These are all things we talked about in the presentation today. Go down the list, see what you've already accomplished, and then circle the things you need to still work on. Just a quick look so you can really organize your thoughts and putting together the next steps for funding your organization. Beneath that is the business plan. You can download this template and you'll be able to actually fill in the blanks. There's a little bit of lingo there already. You can read that and then change it, make it yours, own it, put in videos, put in pictures, save it as a PDF or a Word document, and then make sure you get that out to people and take it with you as a professional presentation. In the upper left-hand corner is the example proposal. This is the one that Continue to Give uses. If an organization needs to get board members on board to approve using Continue to Give, lots of times organizations will take this to their board members because it has all the information about the organization, the costs, and what the next steps are. You can take something like that and create something of your own that really speaks to your organization that you can hand out. The last one is the 3 important next steps. What are those steps? If you're not using Continue to Give, you're definitely going to want to get signed up. You're going to want to use Continue to Give and their donor management system so you can really manage your donors the way we've been talking today. There is a cost for that to manage your donors, but that cost is far outweighed by how easy it makes it for you to be able to communicate on a regular basis and retain donors. So you really want to consider that. You're trying to retain donors long term. And then some of those other steps in there will be how to set up your fundraising. So you'll want to go through each of these documents and make sure you make them yours and you put them to good use. Hunter and I completely believe that you can fund your organization fully. You do not need to struggle onward in trying to make this happen. If you use the steps that we've talked about, you'll be able to accomplish this. We don't do this webinar because we have nothing to do. We do this webinar because we have been active in organization and missions and nonprofits worldwide, and we've seen what works and we've seen what doesn't work. And we're trying to encourage you and give you the tools to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter, thanks for letting me join today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eric. And so now we just want to open it up to you guys. If you have any questions, is there something we didn't cover that you were hoping we'd cover? What are your questions, or are there struggles that you are facing in your support raising right now? And yeah, so I want to give it over to our listeners. And if you have a question, go and just type it there in the chat box, and we'll see if we can answer that. And while you guys are thinking of that or typing that in, I just wanted to share too. You're not alone in this. We're not just sharing these things. Like, we have actively implemented these steps before. And again, for my wife and I, so we're actually in the States right now. So my wife is pregnant and we're having a baby in May. Our goal is to go back to Kosovo in this fall. Our donors, we told them, since we'll be in the States for a time, you can stop your giving right now, and we'll start up again. We'll let you know when we go back on the field. So we don't have support right now because I have a job, but I'm going to be going into these same steps, and I'm going to be doing it again. And I'm actually really excited about it. It's an honor to be able to go and ask people for support, to support you, to join you. And so this fall, I'm doing the exact same things that I just told you we're going to be doing. So you're just not alone in that. One of the, maybe just a question I have for you, Eric, is I went through a few of these, the giants in your own mind. Is there something that you found in your own mind or your own ministry that was the thing that really held you back from going to people? I don't know if that makes sense. If something comes to your mind.
No, that definitely. A lot of times I feel like I don't have enough resources to tell people why I do what I do. And so I found myself gathering the resources, learning the information about where I was going, because, people don't just want to know, hey, people in Vanuatu need fresh water. They want to know who the people in Vanuatu are. Yeah. And so I found myself getting information about the demographics, about the population, about the political environment there, and why is it poverty stricken? There's a lot of places in the world that are poverty stricken. Why Vanuatu? what are the needs and what are the opportunities? You see, and then when I started doing that, some of those opportunities, I started to realize, you know what, these people can help themselves. I just need to give them the leverage to do that. And so we don't just go in and just serve a people that can't help themselves. We build a people up and raise them and teach them skills that they can go now and do this themselves. So that was kind of one of the things I had to get over was I'm not qualified or I don't have enough information of what to do. I think the other one is that people don't really care. That's not true. We're in a world, like Hunter said earlier, politically with the pandemic, there's so much going on. People are afraid. So it's hard now. It's hard to raise funds, but people do care. And when people break out of their own place of fear and where they live and really start to serve others, even through just donations, it can change lives. And so I had to get those giants out of my mind. And once I started to do that, we started to see an increase and we started to see more blessing in that.
Yeah, that's awesome. The first thing you shared really, man, I think that's so important is not seeing these people as, I guess, not pitying these people or I guess what I don't know if I'm going for the right word, but really seeing the Vanuatu people. It's not that they can't help themselves; they just need help understanding. They need help getting to a certain place. So you're not just going because we as ministries can overserve and keep people in that place, but the goal is not to keep them in there in poor or hungry and just give them some food. The goal is to change their mindset and help them be like, hey, here's what you can do to get out of that. So I think that's super important, just as any ministry or any nonprofit.
Yeah. And we have some people on today that have some really neat organizations. I used to work for Continue to Give. And so I've spoken with a few of you and I'm familiar with some of your organizations, and you have some incredible opportunities and some incredible ways that you're serving people. Every person, as you know, has a story. And so now we need to encourage those people and help move those people's lives forward. And so that's what you're doing. And so never discount it as not worth doing. Never walk away from your vision or your goal or your dream. There is no higher calling than serving other people. And that's what your organization is about. So now these are the steps to get your organization fully funded, and we completely believe it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. All right.
Well, I'm not seeing any questions come in, and I think we've given you guys enough time to hopefully download the handouts. Yeah, it looks like some people have been downloading that, so that's awesome. So that's it. I think we're gonna go and wrap this up. But yeah, just thank you guys for joining. I love being a part of this and being a part of what you guys do, because being a part of Continue to Give, like Eric said before, he worked for Continue to Give as well. And so we have a small part, but we have a small part to play in your ministry. And that's really awesome. So I appreciate you guys using us, for those of you that are. And I hope to serve more of you guys in the future and see how we can change the world together. So thank you guys. Thank you, Eric, for joining us and sharing your story, sharing your everything. So, all right.
Bye-bye.
Have a great rest of your day. God bless.